These are 12 unreleased Michael Jackson tracks that have been hiding in a storage unit for over 30 years, and what happened when they were finally discovered will change everything you thought you knew about the King of Pop's creative process. This is not just another celebrity memorabilia story. This is about musical history that was literally lost and found. In December 2024, a former California Highway Patrol officer named Gregg Musgrove was doing what he calls treasure hunting, buying abandoned storage units in the San Fernando Valley and seeing what secrets they might contain. What he found in a dusty unit in Van Nuys would send shockwaves through the music world and give us the most significant Michael Jackson discovery since his death in 2009. The 56-year-old stay-at-home dad had no idea he was about to stumble upon what experts believe could be worth millions of dollars. An associate had contacted him about a storage unit that once belonged to Bryan Loren, a name that might not be familiar to casual fans, but should be legendary in Michael Jackson circles. Bryan Loren, nicknamed The Wiz, was the producer behind some of the most experimental and ambitious music Jackson ever created. When Musgrove started going through the boxes and tapes, he knew he had something special. He said he was listening to the tapes and would get goosebumps because nobody had ever heard these recordings before. He said that hearing Michael Jackson actually talk and joke back and forth was really cool. But what he was hearing was not just rare, it was revolutionary. The collection contains 12 unreleased tracks recorded between 1989 and 1991, during the sessions for what would become the Dangerous album. These are not rough demos or half-finished ideas. These are fully developed songs that show Michael Jackson pushing his artistry into completely new territories. The titles alone are intriguing: Don't Believe It, Son of Thriller, and Serious Effect. But it is what is actually on these tapes that makes them priceless. Perhaps the most fascinating discovery is a track called Truth on Youth, which appears to be a rap duet between Michael Jackson and LL Cool J. Think about that for a moment. This was from 1989 to 1991, when hip-hop was still fighting for mainstream recognition, and here was the biggest pop star in the world collaborating with one of rap's pioneers. LL Cool J was specifically invited to rap on Serious Effect and Truth About Youth because Jackson wanted to add hip-hop elements to the record. This wasn't just experimentation, this was Michael Jackson trying to bridge musical worlds before anyone else even knew those bridges needed to be built. Another track, 7 Digits, reveals Jackson's darker artistic sensibilities. On the tape, you can hear Michael explaining that the title refers to the identification number given to dead bodies in a morgue. This kind of morbid fascination was always part of Jackson's artistic DNA, from Thriller to Dirty Diana, but hearing him discuss it casually in the studio gives us a rare glimpse into how his mind worked creatively. To understand why these tapes matter so much, you need to know about Bryan Loren and his unique relationship with Michael Jackson. Born Bryan Loren Hudson on May 5, 1966, Loren was a musical prodigy who caught Jackson's attention in the late 1980s. Loren recalled that Michael pursued him after hearing songs from an album Loren wrote and produced for a talented young artist named Shanice Wilson. What followed was an extraordinary creative partnership. Michael would often drive to Bryan's house in Woodland Hills and record music in his basement studio. Picture this: the most famous person on the planet casually showing up at a producer's house to jam in the basement. This was not the polished corporate studio environment you would expect. This was raw, experimental, and intimate. Together they recorded Work That Body, She Got It, Serious Effect, Do Not Believe It, 7 Digits, and Man in Black. By June 1990, Jackson had already recorded over 50 songs for what would become Dangerous. The creative output was incredible. Jackson ultimately recorded 60 to 70 songs for that album, showing just how prolific this period was. But here's where the story gets complicated. none of Bryan Loren's recordings made it onto the final Dangerous album. Despite the strength of the material, Jackson was searching for something else, a sound as compelling and successful as Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation from 1989. In June 1990, Jackson made the decision to bring in Teddy Riley, the pioneer of New Jack Swing, which completely changed the direction of the album. This decision essentially buried Loren's work in the vault, where it remained until Musgrove found those tapes in December 2024. The timing of this discovery is particularly poignant because Bryan Loren himself passed away in January 2026 at the age of 59, just weeks after his work with Michael finally came to light. His friend Shauna Mangatal announced his death on Facebook, marking the end of an era for New Jack Swing and R&B production. The value of these tapes goes far beyond money, though the numbers are staggering. Musgrove and his team believe the collection could be worth 7 figures. To put that in perspective, Michael Jackson memorabilia regularly breaks auction records. His red and black Thriller jacket sold for $1.8 million in 2011. A gilded porcelain sculpture of Jackson with his pet chimpanzee Bubbles fetched over 4.7 million euros. Even a basketball from his Jam music video, signed by both Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan, sold for 250,000 euros. But these tapes represent something even more valuable, a window into Michael Jackson's creative process at one of the most important periods of his career. The late 1980s and early 1990s were when Jackson was transitioning from the pop perfection of Thriller and Bad into something more experimental and edgy. These recordings show him taking risks, collaborating with hip-hop artists, and exploring darker themes that would not fully emerge until later in his career. The legal situation surrounding these tapes is fascinating and complex. The Michael Jackson estate has made it clear that while they do not own the physical tapes, they retain the copyrights to the music and compositions. Their official response noted that the estate of Michael Jackson was presented with DAT copies, not master recordings, and that the actual master recordings were already located in the estate vaults. This means that while Gregg Musgrove owns these specific cassettes and DAT tapes, he cannot simply release the music or sell it for commercial use. The estate declined to purchase the tapes for undisclosed reasons, but they did provide Musgrove with an official letter stating they do not claim ownership of these specific cassettes. It is a legal limbo that highlights the complicated nature of posthumous artist rights and intellectual property. The discovery comes at a time when Michael Jackson's estate is more valuable than ever. In 2024, his estate earned an estimated $600 million, largely due to a monumental music catalog deal with Sony. The estate is now worth $2 billion, making Jackson the highest-earning deceased celebrity for the 8th year running. His posthumous total has reached $2.4 billion, which is remarkable considering he was essentially $500 million in debt when he died in 2009. There is genuine excitement building around Jackson's legacy. The upcoming biopic Michael, starring his nephew Jafar Jackson, is scheduled for release on April 24, 2026. The teaser trailer was viewed 30 million times in its first 6 hours, and 116.2 million times in 24 hours, more than any trailer for a musical biopic in history. With a budget of $155 million, it is clear that Hollywood believes there is still an enormous appetite for Michael Jackson content. The Broadway musical MJ has been another massive success, earning $300 million in ticket sales and winning Tony Awards. This renewed interest in Jackson's artistry makes the timing of the tape discovery even more significant. Fans and historians are hungry for new material, new insights, and fresh perspectives on the King of Pop. What makes these particular recordings so special is that they capture Michael Jackson in a completely unguarded creative moment. Studio conversation, jokes, explanations of his artistic choices. This is the kind of intimate material that usually gets erased or lost. The fact that Bryan Loren kept these tapes for over 3 decades shows how much he valued the work they created together, even though it never saw the light of day. The discovery also raises questions about what other unreleased material might be out there. If a storage unit in Van Nuys can contain a treasure trove of Michael Jackson recordings, what else might be sitting in warehouses, closets, or forgotten archives around the world? Jackson was notoriously prolific, often recording multiple versions of songs and experimenting with different arrangements and collaborators. The tragedy is that we may never hear these tracks the way Michael intended. Legal restrictions mean they will likely remain in private collections or museums, rather than being released for fans to experience. But their existence alone changes our understanding of this crucial period in Jackson's career. They show an artist willing to take risks, to collaborate outside his comfort zone, and to push the boundaries of what pop music could be. As 2026 approaches, and we prepare for the Michael Jackson biopic, these newly discovered tapes serve as a reminder that even 17 years after his death, Michael Jackson can still surprise us. The King of Pop was always full of mysteries, from his private life to his creative process, and this storage unit discovery proves that some of those mysteries are still waiting to be uncovered. The story of these tapes is really the story of artistic legacy, how it is preserved, how it is discovered, and how it continues to evolve long after the artist is gone. In a dusty storage unit in the San Fernando Valley, 12 songs waited for over 30 years for someone to recognize their value. They represent not just lost music, but lost possibilities, a glimpse of the creative directions Michael Jackson was exploring before his life and career took their final tragic turn.